In this video, we are going over my version of the Comfy Lost Zone box deck with the amazing rare Rayquaza. I am loving this deck so far. It is so much fun. It hits for so many good numbers. Basically, it one-shots everything in the game right now. So let's get right on into it. So we're going to start off with our main, I guess you could say, draw engine, and that is going to be Comfy from Lost Origin. It has the ability Flower Selecting. Look at the top two cards on top of your deck, put one of them into your hand and the other one into the Lost Zone. This helps us get more cards into the Lost Zone so we can use cards like Sableye as well as Mirage Gate to power up our different attackers. So our first attacker is the attacker we basically use in the early game, and that is going to be 2 copies of Cramorant. Cramorant is very good because it attacks essentially for 0 energies because of the Lost Provisions ability. If you have 4 or more cards in the Lost Zone, this Pokemon's attacks cost no energy. This allows us to just get 4 in there and just start swinging for 110 damage, and it's not affected by weakness. It's a very solid way to just poke something to set it up later for a amazing rare Rayquaza. We also play 2 copies of Amazing Rare Rayquaza. Now I'm very happy this card is seeing play as Rayquaza is my favorite Pokemon. It has the attack Amazing Burst for 1 Grass, 1 Lightning, and 1 Fighting energy. Discard all basic energy cards from this Pokemon. This attack does 80 damage for each type of basic energy card you discarded. So if you discard 3, that is 240, and if you discard 4, that is 320, and then if you get all 5, you can do 400 damage, which basically just one-shots everything in the game. It is a very awkward energy cost, but because we play Mirage Gate, we can get this powered up in 1 turn. Next up, we play 1 copy of Sableye. Sableye has the attack Lost Mind. If you have 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone, you can put 12 damage counters on your opponent's side of the field in any way you like. This is very good because we can clean up stuff. Let's say if we do Radiant Greninja's attack, Moonlight Shuriken, we can clean up with Lost Mind to knock out some Pokemon and take a few prizes, as well as this is our only way through Ice Cube. So if our opponent plays an Ice Cube and starts using Block Face, none of our Pokemon can attack except Sableye because we can go through that Block Face effect, since we are placing damage counters and not doing damage to the Pokemon. We also play 1 copy of Radiant Greninja. It has the ability Concealed Cards. You may discard an energy from hand and draw 2 cards. Very powerful. As well as the attack Moonlight Shuriken. For 2 water, 1 colorless, discard 2 energies from this Pokemon and you do 90 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. Very, very good in the Lugia matchup because we can Moonlight Shuriken and then put 6 damage counters on each Archeops with Sableye's Lost Mind attack, and that will knock out both Archeops and our opponent can't power up their Pokemon. We also play 1 copy of Manaphy for the ability Wave Veil. Prevent all damage done to your Pokemon by your opponent's attacks. Basically, our opponent can't Radiant Greninja us or use stuff like Amazing Rare Raikou. A note you have to remember is Manaphy does not stop Sableye, so your opponent can still Sableye your Pokemon. We also play 1 copy of Oranguru, the Primate Wisdom Oranguru. It is very good. The ability is switch the top card of your deck with a card in your hand. Very powerful because it has synergy with Comfy as well as Colress's Experiment. I really like using it as putting dead cards on top of our deck to then use Flower Selecting to put that dead card into the Lost Zone. Usually that is excess battle VIP passes after the first turn of the game. And then the final Pokemon we play is 1 copy of Galarian Zigzagoon. Galarian Zigzagoon has the ability Headbutt Tantrum. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto the bench, you may place 1 damage counter on your opponent's Pokemon, which is very solid because we do 320 damage with Amazing Rare Rayquaza's Amazing Burst with 4 energies, and if we use Galarian Zigzagoon's Headbutt Tantrum, we can knock out some of those pesky 330 HP VMAX. Now for trainers, we only play 1 stadium, and that is going to be 1 copy of Temple of Sinnoh. All special energy attached to Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, provide 1 colorless energy and no other effect. This is very useful and mainly used for Ice Cube because Ice Cubes like to put Wash energy, which prevents effects of attacks, which means we can't use any of our attackers, especially including Sableye. But if we have Temple of Sinnoh into play, then we can use Sableye to knock out that pesky Ice Cube and hopefully win the game. Now for supporters, we play a full 4 copy of this one. This is super important, and that's going to be Colress's Experiment. Colress's Experiment reads, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, put 3 of them into your hand and the other 2 in the Lost Zone. Very good at powering up our Sableye, Cramorants, as well as we can use Mirage Gate later. Since we attack for so many different types of basic energies, we play 2 copies of Raihan. Raihan's very good at helping us get more energy onto our Rayquaza. The effect on Raihan is you can only play this card if one of your Pokemon was knocked out during your opponent's last turn. Note, if your opponent poisons you and you get knocked out in between turns by poison, you can actually use Raihan. And then after you use this card, you can attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. If you do, search your deck for any card. Since it says any card, you do not have to reveal what card that is to your opponent. And you are not allowed to just fail Raihan because you actually have to search for a card. And then the final supporter we play is 1 copy of Boss's Orders. Switch your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active. Very good at just knocking out Manaphy's with Cramorants, as well as bringing up something into the active to knock it out with Rayquaza. Hopefully a multi-prize Pokemon. For items, we are going to be playing the mandatory 4 copies of Mirage Gate. You can only play Mirage Gate if you have 7 or more cards in the Lost Zone. You can search your deck for up to 2 basic energies of different types and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. So obviously that allows us to power up Rayquaza, as well as we can power up Radiant Greninja to use that Moonlight Shuriken attack. Next, we play 4 copies of Switch cards. Switch your active basic Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. If you do heal 30 damage from that Pokemon, you move to the bench. Basically, since we play only basic Pokemon, this is way better than Switch simply because we get a heal damage, and that is actually very relevant in the mirror match, considering your opponent's most likely going to sprinkle damage on with Sableye to then Sableye again next turn to take a bunch of knockouts. And since we play a bunch of basics, we also play 4 copies of Battle VIP Pass. You can only play this card during your first turn, search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon, and put them onto your bench. Then shuffle your deck. Very good turn 1, obviously, because we can just fill our bench up with a bunch of Comfeys, our Radiant Greninja, Manaphy, or Rangaroo, a lot of our bench sitting support Pokemon. And then later on in the game, we can always Primate Wisdom this on top of the deck to put it into the Lost Zone, so we don't have any dead cards in our hand or deck. And since we are completely a 1 prize deck, we are playing 4 copies of Scoop Up Net. Put one of your Pokemon that isn't a V or GX into your hand and discard all cards attached. This allows us to reuse Comfeys, as well as we can pick up Galarian Zigzagoon and then place it back down for another 10 damage on their side of the field. We then play 3 copies of Quick Ball. Discard a card from your hand and search your deck for a basic Pokemon. Very basic, but very good. We then play 2 copies of Ordinary Rod. Ordinary Rod, you can choose one or both. Shuffle up to 2 Pokemon from your discard pile into your deck, and then shuffle up to 2 basic energy cards from your discard pile into your deck. This allows us to reuse that Rayquaza Amazing Rare, as well as put energy back into the deck so we can Mirage Gate it onto the Rayquaza. We then play 1 copy of Heavy Ball. Look at your face down prize cards. You may reveal a basic Pokemon you find there, put it into your hand, and then put Heavy Ball in its place, and then shuffle your prizes. Very good because we only play basic Pokemon, so this is basically search a Pokemon from your prize cards. Very good, especially for all the one-of Pokemon we do play. We also play 1 copy of Energy Recycler. Shuffle up to 5 basic energy cards from your discard pile into your deck. Very good because we are going to get rid of energy with the Concealed Cards ability, as well as we discard energy off Rayquaza to do a bunch of damage, so we're always going to have energy in the discard that needs to be put back into the deck. We play 1 copy of Escape Rope. Each player switches their active Pokemon and one of their bench Pokemon. Your opponent switches first. Basically, it's another switch out, as well as against some decks that play low bench sizes. This Escape Rope is essentially a Boss's Orders without being a supporter. And then the final trainer we play is 1 copy of Air Balloon. The retreat cost of the Pokemon this card is attached to is 2 colorless less. This gives every Pokemon in our deck free retreat essentially, but mainly we want to attach this to a Comfey so we have a free pivot option every turn. And now for the basic energies. 3 copies of basic Fighting Energy. Since Rayquaza does have Fighting Energy in its attack cost, we gotta play some. We also play 3 copies of Lightning Energy. because Rayquaza requires it. We play 3 copies of Water Energy, so we can attack with Radiant Greninja's Moonlight Shuriken, as well as have more energy so we can do more damage with Rayquaza. We then play 3 copies of Grass Energy because Rayquaza requires it. And then finally we play 2 copies of Basic Psychic Energy so we can use Sableye, as well as it's our 5th energy so we can reach that 400 damage with Rayquaza. So that is going to be the list. I really enjoy this list. It is Rayquaza. I do enjoy Lost Box archetypes in general. Let me know in the comments section below, what do you guys think of this list, as well as what would you change from the list? Are you a fan of Rayquaza? Do you think we should add Amazing Rare Raikou in? As well as if you want any of these cards or any other cards in general, you can check out Deckout Gaming. Use promo code YBMcards for 5% off. It saves you a bit of money and it helps the channel out here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.